Hi guys and welcome back. This is part 4 of the Suzuki VS1400 rebuild. Today's going to be a bit of a mashup. I know in the last video I told you I was going to get on with some things, and while I did to a degree, one thing that I put up on Instagram that you all said that you wanted me to show you how to do was actually how to paint these heads and the top of the engine, well the engine in its entirety really, into a black. I've gone with a gloss black finish. I actually start off with a flat matte and then I use a gloss lacquer, high temperature gloss lacquer over the top. The paint is also VHT. I'll show you the brands of those in a moment, but let's go through the process. We'll go through this as quick as we can because I really want to get on with some more interesting stuff for you guys, like putting the engine back together and putting it back in the engine. So we're going to give this a clean. We're going to use this stuff, which is brake cleaner. Really good to get rid of grime and oil and grease, and then I'm going to rub it all down with some wet and dry sandpaper, get a nice smooth clean finish, and then we will paint it. So let's do it. So the trick, so I was told, to a good paint job is preparation. I'm by no means a professional painter. I've very limited experience professionally with any kind of paint. But it is kind of the same with everything. The more preparation you put into something, the better the end result. So we're just going to go ahead and try and scrub away as much of this grime as we can before we start rubbing it down with sandpaper. Make sure you wear an eye protection if you're using this stuff. Will give you some trouble if you're not wearing eye protection. This is an old soft, like a wallpapering sort of brush, and we're using that to get in there because it's long bristles. Get in there to try and scrub out some of that dirt and grime. Obviously, if you've got a parts washer, you could use a parts washer as well. Now, the forgiving thing that we've got about this side of this head, this is actually the front head, is that no one's going to see this bit. This is in the center, this is in the middle of the V-twin. So you're not really ever going to see this bit once everything's back together on the engine. So we don't need to be overly cautious with the prep on this side. However, the edges and the front, we do want to make sure that they are well treated and prepared. Really nice and clean. Okay, so once we've given it a really good clean, you can see we can't really get this much cleaner by hand. It is very, very clean compared to what it was originally. This is the base, this is the cylinder, and then I've got the head that Azazel sent over to me. I'm going to give this a rub down now. This is actually in really good condition. Bit of dirt and grime, but really, really looking forward to getting this sprayed up. I was thinking originally about trimming the edges first, so masking them off and then spraying, but I've already tried on the other head and I just can't get it to look right. So I think what I'm going to do is, if I decide I do want the fins to be shown, I'm going to cure the paint first, so get everything up to temperature once the bike's put back together, make sure it's all cured, and then I will rub down the fins by hand so that I get a good finish like they've already got on here. I do kind of feel like it needs fins, but we shall see where things go. Now that this is done, we can take some of these soft foam pads. These are wet and dry sandpaper pads. These are 100 grit and 120 grit. And the reason I like using these is because they've got this beveled edge here, this corner, and it's really, really helpful to get inside the fins and rub up and down and get inside the fins, flip it over and do the other side as well. Really cool little things. They're not the cheapest, but they do work really well for this particular job, so I'll leave a link in the description for you on those. Right, let's move on to the next one. So before I start working on this head, I'm actually going to put the head casing back on very quickly just to protect everything inside. There's the old skanky head. We're going to give this a clean down and put this on. We'll make sure this is painted as well. Good idea to plug these holes as well. These are still exposed. But now we can start cleaning her up a bit. Okay, so now that we've got both the head and the cylinder clean as best we can with the tools that we have, I'm going to go and jump a step ahead here, and I'm going to actually I'm going to go ahead and hone out the cylinder while we've got it on the bench like this. Now, if you watched the how to change the piston rings video, you'll know why I'm having to do this. Because we've changed the piston rings, we need to hone out the cylinder. The reason we hone out the cylinder is to give the new rings that don't have any kind of worn shape or form, we give them a nice even surface, unused surface to bed down into over time. If we were to put this cylinder back on without honing it, we could wear out the new piston rings a lot quicker. We could have leaks coming past the piston up into the airbox and into the carburetor, etc. And we definitely don't want that for the sake of not honing out the cylinder. You do not need to take your cylinder to a garage to do this. You can do it at home, and you need to get yourself one of these. This is a honing tool. It's a sprung loaded system, and these plates here, they're like grinding pads. You know, they're like stone. And what happens is we put this on the end of our drill, and then we clamp this together, put it down into the cylinder. When we release it, it grips the inside of the cylinder, and then we give it a few rotations going up and down. And what that does is it creates a haze, like it gets rid of the shine that's currently on the inside of the cylinder, and that's what we want. The one thing you need to make sure of though is that you put motor oil on the walls of the cylinders and on the blocks themselves. That's what we're going to do. We're going to grab some of this oil here. Just pop a little bit into the glove, and we're just going to rub the inside of the cylinder with it. And we'll go around and we'll do the edges of the honing tool as well. You can pick up these honing tools pretty much anywhere online. I'll leave a link in the description. Soak those up nicely. Make sure that these are clean, these ends. Make sure there's no grit or dirt. See what spins? So we're going to clamp them together, pop them inside, and we're going to go pretty smooth. We're not going to go too fast, and we're going to move up and down so that the grinding blocks, the rubbing blocks, have a chance to get to the top and the bottom of the cylinder. You see how we've got like a marking along the edge of the cylinder, that haze there? That's what we want. That's what we wanted. And that's all there is to honing your cylinders. Really simple process. Obviously make sure you take your time with it. You don't want to leave the honing tool going for too long, otherwise you'll start taking too much off the walls of the cylinder. And if you take too much off the walls of the cylinder, you're going to need to go up a size. You've effectively bored your cylinder, and you're going to have some problems because you won't know exactly how much has been bored, and then you won't know what size piston rings you need to get for the pistons. So if you are a little bit intimidated about doing this yourself, take it to a garage, but you don't have to. Just do some research, look at what your particular bike, if you're doing the VS1400, nice and straightforward, just follow along with this. If you've got a different kind of bike, go and look up specifically how to hone out the cylinders on that bike. I'm going to temporarily assemble these. I'm going to grab myself the old gasket that sat on here, if I can find that, and put everything back together, and then we can start spraying. So it looks like I may have thrown the old gasket away, which is not something I was expecting to have done, but I can't seem to find it. So the new gasket is going to have to go on. And the reason, like I said, the reason I want to put a gasket in here right now is so that no paint can get through into the cylinder and dry. This is sort of lacquer and all those kinds of things. I really don't want that to be going onto my cylinder. There we are. Like so. New gasket. Go ahead and pop on the cylinder. Lovely. Now that those two pieces are back together, we're going to find the bolts that go on the external sides of the engine, and we're going to tighten those down to clamp everything together. Now that the top end is back together effectively, we can start plugging up the holes. So we've got the air inlet, we've got the exhaust manifold, we've got the cylinder itself, and we've got this underside here. We need to make sure all of these holes and cavities are all sealed up. Okay, so we've plugged everything that we can. We're going to give it one final clean down, make sure there's as little dust and grime on here as possible. So this is the VHT black paint that I'm going to be using. I'll leave a link for this down in the description below. Now, if you want a gloss finish, this is not the correct paint for you. You're going to need to either get a gloss version of this, or you're going to want to get yourself something like this, which is a high temperature clear gloss lacquer. This actually here, this stuff, the SAS VHT black, this stuff is predominantly used on barbecue grills, you know, the patio furnaces and fire pits, etc., etc. That's what this would be used on, and you'll see that when we spray it on and it dries completely, it's a very flat, unattractive black. But the reason I went with this is because it is extremely high temperature. It goes up to 650 degrees Celsius. Okay, so we're going to do a very light layer first. We're going to just do kind of a mist. We're going to use this piece of cardboard that it sat on to rotate it. And we're just going to see how she comes out. Do not expect showroom quality with a rattle can, ever. Don't ever believe that you can create complete showroom quality. You're going to have imperfections. And if that doesn't sit well with you, then I advise maybe it would be best to go and speak to a professional and see what they would charge. This is not a wet coat, this is just to give the rest of the paint something to stick to. So you can see already, I hope, just how matte this is. Let's see if I can get the lighting a bit better for you. It's incredibly matte. This might be what some of you want. Doesn't look terrible, but I don't think the rest of my bike would suit this finish. I'm going to go around and do just another light layer across the whole thing. A little bit heavier, but not mad. Getting in all of those fins. Nice short bursts. You can hear the can and how the pressure is being applied and taken off. See how nice. That to me looks awesome, but it will not dry like that. Okay, so now we're going to give that probably a good 2 to 4 hours to touch dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit it with this stuff. Same process. You're going to give this a really good shake. I don't need to teach you how to paint. You guys know how to do that. And I'm going to use the same method, small little blasts all the way around, and I'm going to do that 2 to 4 times, leaving at least half an hour in between each coat for it to sort of settle and grab onto what it can. Come back, give it another light coat and build up those layers in increments. So as you can see, this is the rear cylinder that I did earlier in the week. You can see the difference just. This is one that's still drying with the matte paint. The shine that you can see is just wet paint. It's not the actual finish. Whereas this one over here, this is completely dry, and this has been using this lacquer here. And I really, really like the way that this has come out. It looks really quite, really quite professional, really quite nice. I don't think that you would know that this had been done with a rattle can, but that is only thanks to this stuff. I really like the way that this one looks. I think it's going to look great. I might rub down the fins, I'm not sure yet. We shall see how she looks when she gets back on the bike. I'm going to now apply this method to this cylinder, and then I'm going to apply the method that I used on both of these to the bottom end of the engine. I'm going to leave the side casings in chrome, and then we will start to reassemble the engine. But for now I need to let this one dry, and then I can lacquer it so that it looks like this one, and then we can move on. Always wear a respirator or a mask when you're doing stuff like this. Make sure you've got loads of ventilation. If you do have any questions, as always, leave them in the comment section below. Remember to hit that like button, and if you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It really does help. And in the next video, we're going to start reassembling the engine. Finally, getting these things painted is kind of like the pinnacle point of the rebuild, because now everything can literally start coming together. So the frame's done, the engine's done, the piston rings are done, the paint's done. Everything can now come back together. I've also ordered something pretty cool, something pretty special that I cannot wait to show up from Italy. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. I can't wait for that video. That's going to be really exciting. Something that might, no, I'm not going to tell you. It's pretty cool. There's no videos on YouTube about this, and about this for the VS1400. So I'm really excited about it. Anyway, guys, you take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next week. All the best.